Welcome back to the Fuji Guys channel. My name is Francis. So you've just got yourself a brand new GFX100 II and you're looking to learn a little bit more about the camera. Well, you're at the right place. So keep on watching. All right, so to navigate the menus, first you click on the menu OK button. And then you can obviously use the joystick to navigate. So you can go to the left and then change section of the menu, go right and go down. But you can also use the front and rear command dial. So by using the front command dial, you can jump full pages. And if you're using the rear command dial, you can change single menu items. So that can make it a little bit faster to navigate the menus once you get used to using the front command dial to jump pages and then the rear command dial to change single menu items. And then when you want to select something, obviously you can press menu OK, you can press back, but you can also press on the rear command dial as well. Now, to control your exposure settings with the GFX100 II, first, if you want to change the aperture, you will use the aperture ring on the lens itself. To change the shutter speed, you will be using the rear command dial. And then to change your ISO, you will be using the front command dial. Now, if you set your lens aperture ring to C, you can use the front command dial to change your aperture. By simply clicking on the front command dial, you'll be able to toggle between the f-stop and the ISO. Now, a cool thing you can do if you want to lock the ISO so that you don't accidentally change it is if you still use the aperture ring for your aperture, you can also toggle and then make it so that the front command dial is set to F number so that even if you turn it, it won't affect the aperture because you have it physically set on the ring itself, but then also it's not set to change the ISO. Now, if you want to change your ISO, simply push once, you toggle back to ISO, and then you can make your adjustment, click again, and then it's kind of locked. So first, if you want to set the GFX100 II to either AF single, AF continuous, or manual focus, it will be on this little lever here so you can change from single to continuous to manual. Now in terms of AF modes, if we go into the menu, we have a couple of options. So we have single point, which obviously is going to be your single AF box. And then if you click on the joystick once, you'll be able to rotate the rear command dial to make the size of the single point bigger or smaller. Now, as you can see on the screen, I have 117 AF points, but if I wanted, I can go in and then set the number of focus points to 425. Now, going back to the menu, I can go and choose zone. And then again, I can move my zone across the screen. And then I can make my zone bigger or smaller. If I press on the joystick once, it'll bring it back to the center. Next, I have wide tracking. So what this does is it basically allows me to track something that is not within the subject detection modes. So all I need to do is aim at something, half press the shutter button, and it will keep track of the subject, whatever it is. And then lastly, we can choose all, which will allow us by clicking onto the joystick, and then by changing the size of the single point to get into zone, change the sizes of the zone, and then get to wide tracking back to single point. So it'll allow us to basically cycle through all of the modes at once. Now the GFX100 II features face and eye detection, and to set that, we can go into the menu, into the AFMF section of the menu, go to the second page, and then I can go in and then choose whether I want the face and eye detection, eye auto, eye off. So it will simply track the face and not specifically the eyes. And then if I want to get very specific, I can go and choose the right or the left eye priority. Now, still in the menu, we can see we have subject detection setting, and this will allow us to track a specific subject. Whenever the camera detects it, it will automatically get it in focus and track it. So we have a lot of options. We have animal, birds, automobile, motorcycle and bikes, airplanes, and train as well. Now we can also track insects under the bird option, and then we can also track drones under the airplane menu. Now I can use the joystick to move the AF point around, or I can set the screen to area, which will allow me to simply use my finger to move the AF point around. Now if I click again, I can turn it off. I can have it so that it will autofocus when I touch the screen. So if I aim at something, touch the screen, it will focus for me. So I can customize my LCD and the information I see through it, also in the EVF as well. So how do I go about customizing this LCD? I simply go into the menu and then go down to the wrench icon, setup, and then get to screen setup. And then I go down to display custom setting. And then from there, I can simply check everything I want to see onto my LCD and EVF. So things like my film simulation, the white balance setting, the image quality, whether the 35mm mode is enabled, and so on. Now within that same idea, I can also enable an electronic level, and I have two choices. I have the 2D level, which is the simple line, or I do have the 3D level as well, which will give me the front and back, left to right as well. Now I can also configure the LCD so that it is touch sensitive whenever I'm looking through the EVF, and I can move my AF point around using the LCD. So how do I set that up? I simply go into the button and dial setting and then go to the third page to touch screen setting. Now I can go down to the EVF touch area setting, and then I can choose which area of the screen is going to be touch sensible whenever I'm looking at the EVF, so that I can move my AF point around. Within the same menu, I do have the option to have the touchscreen enabled when I'm in the playback mode, to have the touch function set to on or off, the double tap setting, and then also the touchscreen setting so that the whole screen can be not touch sensitive at all. So no area focus point moving around, nothing, just the touchscreen is disabled so that you don't accidentally change any settings, for example, if you prefer that. So now let's talk about the top LCD, because there's a lot of things we can do with it. So first of all, I can light it up by simply pressing this button here. I can toggle the different view modes by pushing on this button. So I can have the virtual dials so that when I'm changing settings, I see my virtual dials moving, or I can have a histogram, a live histogram displayed onto the top LCD. Now, if I go back to this screen, you can see I have some information displayed. So my shutter speed, aperture, ISO, the light meter on the side. Now I can go and change these around and then customize it how I want. So the way I do it is I simply go into the menu and then go to screen setup, and then we'll go down to sub monitor setting. And then from there we can see we have the still mode and the movie mode. So you can have a different screen mode for the stills and for the video. So for this example, let's go into the still mode. We can see that we have a little arrow next to the information. That means we can go to a sub menu, and then here we can see highlighted the area of the sub monitor that we can customize. So let's say that the first one up top, I want the aperture rather than shutter speed, and then I want the shutter speed rather than the aperture. So I just switch these around, and then the bottom one I want to be the white balance. So I can just do that. And now, as we can see on the top of my sub monitor, I do have all these information displayed. So the GFX100 II is a highly customizable camera. You can set up a lot of function buttons to make the features that you use most more accessible. So how do we go about customizing these function buttons and just knowing which buttons are function buttons? We simply have to go and press on the display back button for a couple seconds, and then we'll see that a diagram pops up with all of the function buttons. So as I navigate around the function buttons, you can see they're being highlighted in green so that I know which one I am customizing. And then once I get to the one I want to customize, I can simply press on menu OK, and then I have 9 pages of different options I can assign to these buttons. So simply go and find the functions you want to assign to this button and click OK. So for this example, my function 1 is set to the face and eye detection. And as you can see, when I press on it, you can see that I'm toggling between the various face and eye detection options. So the GFX100 II features 6 custom positions that you can customize to your liking. And then these 6 are for stills and for movies. So basically you have 6 in the still sides and then 6 on the video sides as well. So really 12, to be honest. So how do you go about setting them? Well, there's 2 ways. So I'm going to show you first the long way, I like to call. So we simply go into the menu, and then we go into the image quality setting menu to the 3rd page, and then we have edit, save, custom setting. So we can choose custom 1 up to custom 6, and then we can either save current settings or we can edit and check our settings. So from there, we can go through the menus and then manually set all these one by one. So shooting mode, we can set it to manual, and then we can go into the other modes like drive. We can go and change the image quality. So I want it to set to raw only, for example, and then so on. And then once I'm done, I can just press back, and then my settings are saved. I can then go and add a custom name to my C1, for example, so I can call it birding. But the way I like to do it, and the way I think is easiest, is that I go into the image quality setting menu, and then I have auto update custom setting enabled. Now I go to C1, and I go in and change all of my settings. So let's say I'm going to set my AF/MF mode. I want it set to wide tracking. I want my image quality to be super fine and raw. Raw recording to be lossless compressed, 16-bit. I want it to be HEIF, so on. I go to C2. Again, I go and make my changes, all of my settings, and then once I'm done, I go back to image quality setting, and then I go to auto update custom setting, and then I set it to disabled. So now anytime I go into my C1 to C6, I have my main custom features set, and then if I go and make changes, right, and I go to another mode and then I come back, I still get to that original C1 setting. So it auto resets itself back to its original state. And that's how I like to set all of my C1 to C6 positions. So the GFX100 II has a built-in file transmitter function, which can be used with Adobe's Frame.io so that you can be on a shoot, take pictures, and have them automatically be transferred to your Frame.io account, either wirelessly or connected via Ethernet because of the Ethernet port on the GFX100 II. So how do you go about setting up the Frame.io? Well, first of all, you do need a Frame.io account. Now, on the camera side of things, we get into the menu and we get to the network USB setting menu, and then we'll go to Frame.io camera to cloud. Now we're going to go and connect. We choose either wireless or wired LAN. For this one, we'll be connecting to wireless LAN to my own network. Now, once the connection is established, we have to get a pairing code. So we take that pairing code and then we get to our Frame.io account, into the folder we want to connect to our specific GFX100 II camera. And we enter the code. And then we're connected. And then now, if I go and take a picture, it will automatically bring it up into my Frame.io account. Now, I do want to note that you need to have a memory card into the camera for the images to be transferred, while both saved to the camera and to your Frame.io account. So there are a couple of accessories available for your GFX100 II. Now, first, let's talk about the battery grip. So we have the battery grip for the GFX100 II, which can hold 2 extra batteries, and you can still keep the battery inside the camera, so that'll give you a total of 3 batteries. Now, we can simply remove this low rubber piece here. We can store it nicely within the grip, and then we just line it up and screw it in place. And then the battery grip nicely duplicates, I should say, the controls that we find on the back of the camera. So we have a joystick, AF on, AEL, a Q button, our front and rear command dial, and then also the 3 function buttons that we can find on the top of the camera itself. And the 2 function buttons as well on the front of the camera are found on the grip itself. Now, the next accessory, we have the tilt adapter, so that we can use with the GFX100 II, and we can connect it, and then we can swivel the viewfinder and then also bring it up so we can do some waist level finder. And then also with the grip, what's very nice is that you can shoot at a more comfortable angle like that. Now, this is the same that was compatible with the previous GFX100. So if you already own one of these EVF tilt adapter, it will be compatible as well. Now, the last accessory is the cooling fan. So if you're using the GFX100 II for video shooting, this will come in quite handy for extensive video recordings. So the way we mount it onto the camera, we bring back the LCD screen, and then we remove the little rubber here, which we can conveniently place onto the fan itself. We line up the fan and screw it in place. And here we go. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video on how to set up certain features of the GFX100 II. Now, if you'd like to see more videos about this and other Fujifilm products, don't hesitate to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, until next time, c'était Francis pour les Fuji Guys.